There's some pretty dodgy houseplant advice out there that you do well to just ignore. Not sure how to separate the fact from the fiction? Well, your 15th favourite plant YouTuber is here to help. Just pop to 5 Minute Crafts channel page, take a mental note of all their plant hacks and remember to ignore them. Only joking of course, this isn't a 5 Minute Crafts bashing. Well, not entirely. There are plenty of other weird tips doing the rounds on the internet that is calling for a knight in shining armour to come and disprove. And in the absence of that person, you've got me, unfortunately. What's that? I'm not in your top 15 planter YouTubers? Oh, top 100? Anyway, I've not got time for this. I was happily sat on my sofa one evening with Mrs. Sheffield and the kids, watching hours and hours of planty YouTube content when an intriguing video popped up on my feed. It was all about an ingenious way to increase the water retention of soil by adding cut up pieces of used kitchen sponges to the pot of soil that the plant lives in. I turned suddenly to Mrs. Sheffield and made her jump by screaming, "That will kill that plant." And let's just say she wasn't best pleased with me. I said to her, "Hopefully this video hasn't been shown to too many people." And she turned to me and said, "Can we please stop watching YouTube videos about plants? Enough is enough." Anyway, it turns out 2 million people have indeed watched this bad boy. I can see why, it's got a very enticing thumbnail. Now, the channel shall remain unnamed because 1, I don't want a lawsuit coming my way, and 2, it's not as bad as I'm making out. Long-time viewers will know I have a tendency to dramatise these types of things. To be fair to the video, it seemed to be talking about outdoor potted plants rather than houseplants, although it didn't really make this clear. Sure, in a hot climate, adding water retaining sponges might help in keeping the soil moist a bit longer, although I can think of better ways of doing this, but do this for houseplants and we're on the fast train to Disasterville. And by the way, the best way of keeping your soil moist for longer in hot climates is to add mulch, such as bark, on top of the soil to stop evaporation. I do this in my garden, and not only has it made a difference during heat waves, it's also massively improved the soil structure down below. And yes, we do sometimes get heat waves in Sheffield despite what I say. Back to houseplants, you don't really want anything in your soil holding onto moisture for long, especially not little cubes of sponge. It only increases the risk of root rot, especially for those roots hanging around the sponges and also mould developing on the sponges. Not pretty. I can only imagine the smell further down the line. And what happens when it's time to repot the plant? Good luck getting the sponges out is all I'm saying. A much better alternative is to add vermiculite to your soil mix. But Mr. Sheffield, the video was trying to be thrifty and you just pooed on that by telling us to buy expensive vermiculite. Yes, but I guess it's also expensive replacing a dead plant, right? Mulching your indoor plants can be just as effective as for outdoor plants. Doesn't have to be bark either. Anything that will slow down evaporation and doesn't look too ghastly will do a job. Yeah, maybe not that. Sometimes I think us houseplant nerds are humidity junkies. Sorry, not nerds. Houseplant connoisseurs. Sounds much better. Anyway, we get scaremongered into believing that houseplants need 400% humidity or they'll crisp up and die. It's easy to think why. Most of them live in the jungle after all. And there are tons of humidity increasing hacks out there, from humidity trays to keeping all your plants in the bathroom and having bags over all of them. Well, hands down the most popular one is misting. Even the mighty Monty Don is at it during a recent episode of Gardener's World. But Mr. Sheffield, you've banged on about misting plants plenty enough. You're not going to bore us some more with this, are you? Well, yes, but this time I thought I'd get my white coat on and do a little scientific experiment. This experiment is so scientific that the results will be impossible to dispute. Yeah, right. Here, I've got a perfectly calibrated humidity meter, or hygrometer if you want to get fancy. When I keep it on the little shelf just above my fern, it reads 75%. Pretty good already, but let's see if we can get it even higher. Now, let's give this little guy a good misting and see what the impact is. Let's return 20 minutes later and see what the damage is, so to speak. Not really changed much, has it? Did you call this an experiment? Jeez. And before you say it, I've definitely not rigged the results. What do you take me for? Don't get me wrong, I'm not some sort of misting hater. If you're a keen enthusiast, then have at it. Just don't expect miracles is all I'm saying. It might increase humidity by a percentage point here or there for 10 minutes or so, but the long-term benefit is pretty minuscule. If anything, it's just more likely to stress the plant out. The regular wetting of the leaves creates a hospitable environment for fungus to grow because of the stagnant air in our homes, and I ain't about that life. Just let the plant adjust to your home, and if it doesn't, just simply kick it to the curb. No one wants a needy housemate. I've come to realise that the biggest culprit for making the leaves of our beloved Califea or spider plant turn crispy brown isn't humidity, but instead chlorine. If you didn't know that, then you're clearly a new viewer, because I harp on about this all the time. So welcome and subscribe. Yes, the slow, tortuous build-up of chlorine in the soil from our good old innocent tap water can be toxic for our tropical friends. I made a video all about the wonders of water conditioner and removing chlorine and other toxic chemicals from tap water that I'll leave a link to in the corner now. But watch it after this one, eh? Now, the doubters often tell me that all I needed to do was leave the water to sit in my watering can overnight and voila, chlorine be gone. And yes, this is 100% true. Chlorine is gaseous and does dissipate when left out, so kudos to you. But there is a twist, my planty friend. Yes, chances are that your naughty local water authority is no longer using chlorine to treat the water. No, chances are they are using chloramine. What's chloramine, I hear you cry? Well, I'm no water expert, as you well know, but I do know it pretty much does exactly the same job as chlorine in cleaning our water, but the twist for us planty nerds is that it doesn't dissipate. Nope, not a jot. So you could leave the water out for weeks and weeks and weeks and it will still be there, ready to wreak havoc among your plants. I exaggerate, of course, like I tend to do. Tap water doesn't melt plants, it's a slow build-up that does damage over time. Like I say, I've been using dechlorination and my plants have never looked better, especially my plant nemesis, Mr. Califea zebrina. The fountain of all knowledge, the plant whisperers themselves, and Mr. Sheffield's favourite channel to hate on, 5-Minute Crafts, love putting daft things in their plants. I mean, who in their right mind would put things like milk and soy in their plant soil? Look, those videos were in the name of science, okay? I did those things so my viewers didn't have to. We've all been wondering if those concoctions and salty soy truly help our plants, and now we know. Anyway, another gem from this channel is adding hair to soil. Yep, hair. I'm not sure what hair, mind you. Could be your own, if you have some. Your dogs, your cats, your neighbours, your worst enemies, who knows? They're never that specific. Now, the claim benefit here is a boost in the also important nitrogen. Nitrogen is of course one of the 3 main nutrients plants need for healthy growth, but I wonder where we could get that without having to resort to cutting our own hair off. Nope, can't think of anything. If you can, then do let me know in the comments down below. Even if hair is packed full of nitrogen, shoving a furball's worth of it into the soil of our houseplants really isn't going to achieve anything. It's just going to sit there attracting vermin. Nutrients need to be made available for the roots to draw on. It needs to be composted down, and this takes months. Sorry 5-Minute Crafts, but you're wasting our time again, I'm afraid. I really am surprised they haven't come after me, you know. There are some crazy folks in the world, you know. Rather than sticking to using mayonnaise in their tuna and egg sandwiches like any other sane person would, some people are using it to spread onto the leaves of their plants like spreading butter over toast. Why would somebody do this, I hear you cry? First, they have far too much time on their hands, and second, because they believe in their heart of hearts that it's the best way to clean the leaves and make them as shiny as the plastic replicas from IKEA. I mean, why? I don't know about you, but I'd much rather have a plant that looks like, you know, a plant, rather than be all unnaturally shiny. In a way, I do admire the ingenuity, but it's really not doing any favours for our little green friends. There's even leaf shining products on the market ready and waiting for you to part with your hard-earned money. The truth is though that many of these products clog the openings on the leaves with oil or wax, limiting respiration that is also important for their health. Call me old-fashioned all you like, but I just love using good old H2O to clean my plants. You can wipe them down with a damp cloth if you like, or my favourite method is to Shawshank Redemption them in the garden. Plenty clean enough for me. Us planty folk are a thrifty bunch. We love nothing more than repurposing one thing into another. Look at my channel, I'm always at it. Eggshells are a super popular one. I mean, who needs plant feed when you've got leftover eggshells from your breakfast that you can just plonk onto your plant's soil? There are all sorts of goodies like calcium, potassium, sulfur, and magnesium, right? Well, yes, using eggshells can work, but you've got to do it the right way, my plant friend. You can't just expect to chuck big chunks of eggshell onto the soil of your plants and be done with it. Nope, it's just not going to break down in time to be available for the plant's roots, just like with the hair hack earlier. The trick then is to instead blend the eggshells down into a fine powder using your blender and add it to your soil mix. Over time it will compost down and turn into valuable nutrients that the plants can use. I wouldn't do this every time you make your breakfast omelette either. You get to the point where you're just potting up plants into eggshells, which would just be weird. Maybe just once every month, or I don't know, maybe just rely on actual plant feed. Just saying. So earlier I talked about how you'd need to be a crazy idiot to add milk to the soil of your houseplants, and hey, it just so happens that I am that very idiot, as if you didn't know that already. You can watch the results of me doing this to my poor innocent money tree in the video on the screen now. Was it a disaster, or did it turn my plant into a beautiful specimen? Watch and find out, and subscribe.